we are still running two silos of the operations into the organization, where we have OT operations separately and we have the IT operations separately. I think though with this pandemic thing, which has really hit us hard, we have learned a lesson that we should marry these two things, the IT and OT part of it, and take the maximum benefit out of these two things, and really see that how automation can really help you out, and we can cut down on the Monday jobs and repetitive jobs, and really take the benefit of the solutions.
Outstanding. And I think you touched a very sensitive topic of operating IT in silos. And I think your point, if I may say, and then you can validate, is earlier IT used to be a cost center, purely, right? And then now they're embracing IT more into the mainstream and have operations managers actually accepting this as a part of the core function.
I would like to simply say that what you said is very true, because pre-pandemic, I think so IT was just taken as a support department to the manufacturing side. But with this pandemic hitting us hard, we were able to change the scenario that now today we are the strategic partners into the organization. We are able to sit into the boardrooms to give solutions to the organization, how we can really automate the system, how we can cut down on the cost, how we can really give you dashboards for making decisions on a prompt basis, not waiting for an Excel sheet to come to you after 15 days of your things, after which you compile and then come back to the management for making a decision, which might be too late for you to really do any job. So I think so. We, as IT guys, also have to look into it that IT job is not only to provide laptops, connectivity to the organization. It is the job of the IT professionals to see how they can really resolve the issues which are lying underneath the operations or any other parameters which are there in the organization. Come up with the solution which can really help the organization to grow along with the IT things being put over there.
Outstanding. And then I think this is a great view, because I think most of us have been seeing and watching this upcoming. Although saying is easier than doing, right? Turning the tables around and getting on the other side of the table. I'm sure you could do it very well. So congratulations. Now the question to you, because you have a different perspective. You kind of, not I think focused only IT. You really governing the show and then leading the business from the front end, and then probably you are leading one of the component is IT under your belt. I mean, the overall manufacturing. So if IT people are coming to you and they are asking you, how they can help you, how do you navigate and how do you see the perception in the company is getting changed, and then you are leading that? I'm sorry, I'm just asking challenging questions, maybe keeping it for the benefit of all.
So in the past, I've seen many times there were a lot of people who used to come with a solution. We can probably cut down the cost by this. I said, so I am a very paperwork, and I do something like that. I said, can you solve this? Yeah. So if you solve this, I can solve it. Why am I paying money?
As simple
as that. So at times there have been, the technologies, yes, the IT is like year on year is getting cheaper.
Of course.
So yes, these days it could be beneficial, but in the past I've seen the work that we do. It's not too IT centric.
But now you are seeing this is getting more and more visible.
Yeah. So we also keep on moving ahead with technology. It's like more of technology driven rather than IT driven. Yeah.
Outstanding. And then one of the trends which you may want to share, which you have noticed in the plastic industry or manufacturing, would you like to point as the highest priority that, hey, this is in the radar as the foremost one IT-led change which I would like to bring into my industry if I am really at a stage to.
See, if you mix technology and IT together,
sure.
So there are a lot of things that can be more automized in terms of getting more production. These days we use a lot of operators to operate the machines, but with my traveling and everything, I've visited a lot of factories in Europe, and I was really thrilled to see the way they work. There was a factory, if I'm using about 200 people in that factory, I couldn't find a single person in that factory.
Fully automated.
Fully automated.
Outstanding. Yeah, that's an experience.
And that, that automation, if I think also, get in India, it's not possible.
So that's your futuristic. Wish I could reach out to that level wherein do this. The second question is related to manpower because you have deal with so the change is always difficult, especially in the upcoming and ongoing, not upcoming, the ongoing show wherein a lot of people have the livelihood on that work, right? And then you have to convince other leaders who are more people-centric, say, hey, I'm going to bring the automation, and then you will cut down the cost. How do you convince as a leader to those leaders that, hey, it's going to cut the cost, but it will still create other jobs for you or it will keep you still occupied?
So if you move towards, for example, hypothetically, if you talk about you have 100 employees right now,
Sure.
right? And you go for automation and you'll have to shed about, say, 50% of it. So that 50% could be your cost of the technology, right? But on the other hand, if you see what I've faced and seen in industry, I'm sure everybody has, the person that you've hired cannot be yours forever.
Sure.
But the technology can be.
Yeah, once you see it,
Yes.
Yes, this would serve. Yeah, I think that's a great thought and I think great perspective. Now switching gears to electric side and electric vehicle, can you give us some insights like what's happening in an Indian scenario or Asian, so to speak, and Asia? How you are seeing this is as a coming industry and what is the receptivity by people for the electric commercial vehicle to very specific?
Earlier, it was driven by the urge for sustainability. But now, once people have started experiencing the electric vehicles in a normal course of operation, they have far realized that it's a very big economic and cost incentive for them also. It helps reduce the cost of logistics and overall cost of goods significantly. So this is a very, very welcoming change for everyone and a real-time experience.
Understood.
Yeah, ask the question.
Sure. Oh,
So
it's
EV is a kind of a interest to me.
Absolutely.
So tell me one thing, you're saying that if we move into commercial vehicles for EV, but what about the initial cost is quite high.
Yeah.
And how do you justify that cost? Because as the technology is going to go forward, that cost is going to come down.
Sure. I think it's a good question. And this is one of the perceptions that we need to spend more money to switch over to electric. But once we do an economic analysis on a total cost of operation basis, so it is realized that the initial cost, which is high, is very well accommodated and adjusted with the operations. So you receive a payback of the vehicle in less than 2 years, and then it gives you a significant savings in your operations over the life of the asset. So we have done some analysis here. If we talk about a very realistic scenario, taking light commercial vehicles into the picture. So over a lifespan of 10 years, a light commercial vehicle in an EV basically is 1/3 the cost of a diesel vehicle and half the cost of a CNG vehicle. That is the overall savings which a person gets.
Good to know. Yeah, never heard about that. So that's a good perspective. The next question for you, sir. How you are seeing the data-driven and then customer centricity-driven behavior is coming in the automotive parts industry? Because why I am so particular, any industry which is customer facing, having a high touch points, this is already very evident. Clearly, we have seen that, right? But in the parts, which is actually one step further from there, are you seeing any data-driven, customer centricity-driven manufacturing behavior coming up, or those patterns are still far from the reality?
No, the things have really changed in the automotive industry we talk about. Now the customers are so demanding into the things that they were looking for the things to come up very fast. Now the model changes are happening on a fly. Today, if we talk about the customer say that I want this model, immediate this is all. Although there is a shortage of the chips, so people are not able to get those things as fast as they are looking for. But on the other side of it, the safety parameters, the things which are coming into the field now, that you have to have all the, because we manufacture components which are basically going to give you the safety of it. Suppose I say I manufacture components for the automobile industry, the components which I am manufacturing is so safety driven. In case a small thing mistake is happening on that component, it could be a fatal for the guy who's sitting at the part. So the quality of the products is getting more and more complicated now. People have to really see from the lens that no small mistake also happens on the quality part of it, which carries on to the customer part of it and which gets put into the lens. I think so. We are looking into the data which is there that how many recalls are happening into the automobile industry because even for small things, but I have to call back the things. The cost of a recall is so high that it sometimes is more than the cost of the profit of 5 years of the company which they are paying for. So I think so data is one thing, like we are talking about predictive maintenance, now we are talking about predictive failures of the machines. Because sometimes when your employee is working onto the shop floor, he gets so accustomed to that particular thing that his natural eyes are not able to identify the fault which is happening in the part. Because throughout the 8 hours of the journey, he's looking into that particular thing and he is not able to recognize that particular things. So now we are talking about vision control basis quality inspections to happen. We're talking about predictive IoT based predictive failures of the machines. We are seeing the changes in happening in the part manufacturing, the tools being used. Whether my tool is really giving the quality product or not, is there any small variation into it which can cause trouble at the OEM side. So all these data-driven things are coming into it, and decision making is becoming much faster as compared to what used to be there 10 years, 20 years back. Manual is one thing I think so. We talked about one thing particularly. How is it going to cut down the manpower into the system? I think so if we go back in 80s when we started talking about IT, people were saying that if IT is being put into place, there will be no job for the people in play. And if you see the things today, it is the reverse. IT has created so much jobs into the field that whole manufacturing companies have not put that much job what the IT has really put into it, and IT is the non-prepared for all the whole countries. But if you are cutting something into the manual job, as I always call it only jobs, we are able to create some better quality jobs for those same people. People will be utilized to do other activities. So it's not that when you're doing some adventure running part of it, it is always there to cut down the manpower. So data-driven things will be there because, as I said, that today we generate the MIS for a flag. The management is able to make a decisions immediately that okay, how the market is going to move, which particular part is going to be in demand from tomorrow onwards. So you are able to predict that things and you are able to really act in that market. Today my balance sheet is out of 15th of the day, which used to take 3 months or 4 months to really compile the things and come back. The MIS is ready on every third of month because you are able to do the things from computers. Previously you are doing it manually. Think of a scenario, the computerization would have not been there. The number of invoices which are being generated today in an organization, if I talk about my organization, I'm generating over 3,000 invoices per day. I have to put 50% on typewriters to get the things printed. That is being done by a single guy today. So I think so data-driven things are going to be the future of the industry, and it's going to have the whole country in that.
Excellent. That's a great perspective and a lot of insights, and obviously learning from the experience. And it touched one of my personal thing also. I used to be in automotive parts industry, to be very specific. I used to work with Hindustan Motors. And
I also work with Hindustan.
Oh, did you? Which year?
I was in 1980s.
Okay, so I was there in 1994 to 96. I was with JK Tires, and then Hindustan Motors was with the plants. And this IT thing started exciting me. And then that's where and then you were point on in 80s and late 80s and in early 90s, IT had started, right, coming in, and there was a big buzz that, hey, IT is going to replace a lot of jobs. Then people started either looking for how to enrich themselves or moving across. Probably I was one of those who crossed the fence. let's go to the IT side and then make the career over there. So, but good to know, it's a pretty detailed answer. Thank you so much. This was helpful.
I would just like to give one point. So taking forward from sir's couple of observations. So at a micro level also, we treat a vehicle like a complete processing unit now. Because I don't know, not many people would be knowing it. Sir mentioned about two things. One is data, and the second thing is preventive maintenance. So in electric vehicles, all the components are connected to each other on a communication bus. So a lot of data is being generated. The motor is connected to the motor controller. It is connected to the battery BMS. It is connected to the display cluster of the vehicle. And all these devices are in turn connected to an IoT device which is pushing the data out. So the vehicle is talking within itself and to third parties. So once the data from all the components are individually pushed out onto a server, it is analyzed for preventive maintenance aspects and a particular part failure aspect. Plus, this data is utilized by the service agencies. This data is utilized by the financiers who are financing the vehicle. They get to see what has been the utilization of the vehicle. So now the vehicle in itself becomes a complete processor and generating so much of data, which is facilitating so many operations and services. So this has completely revolutionized the entire industry.
That's excellent. I mean, that's something I would think futuristic in nature. I'm not sure how much it is being used, how many companies it is being used, but certainly it has a lot of power.
Absolutely.
Because what you said makes sense. It's like a forward integration and then really leading that data, really creating another ecosystem. So it's a good perspective to know. So thank you once again, all three. Probably we took more time and then I took, I'm getting rid of that, but I started enjoying this discussion, please.
We appreciate you sharing your fantastic idea and perspectives. And now we would like to ask our audience if they have any questions for our incredible panelists. Please raise your hand if you have any question, and we'll pass the microphone to you. Any questions?
Okay.
Very good evening. Very good evening. So I have a question to Sujit sir. So because I know you are long, so you are managing of the corporates. So nowadays we are discussing about automation, process automation, and RPA thing. So I have observed because in a company where we have one plant or 1%, 5%, 10%, that is okay. But in your case, you are also leading that digitalization or automation will go along and doing the same thing in your plants. So what are the so I'm putting two questions in one. So what are the these challenges and benefits of RPA implementation in corporates like this?
So I would first like to talk about the benefits of an RPA implementation in a large organization. Any organization, more than 5 plants or 5 processing units, really can take the benefit of an RPA implementation, because I would say, take simple examples of it, like your account receivable, accounts payable, your gate entry system, your GR making system. These are some repetitive, non-value added activities which every organization is doing. Every organization is maintaining an accounts department in every unit separately sitting over there. This can be very easily automated by using an RPA and putting the things in as a centralized processing place, where the scanned copy of an invoice comes to a desk, from where it is exactly being moved by RPA by auto scanning and putting it to the ERP, whatever ERPs you are using, so that the quality of work is being done, and people are not just doing a data entry part of it, but they are able to really do some good analysis on what all exactly that data has been captured from it, how my aging and other things can be predicted. So all these things which are repetitive in nature and are very static sort of things can be immediately converted by an RPA process for automation. Now talking about the challenges what we face when we use RPA. Uh, as I said, that any organization with less than 5 business units, the RPA becomes a bit costly because the OEMs, if I talk about the ERP vendors, they have come up with a new challenge for all the industries that they are looking for the digital licensing to be done for RPA implementation. And the charges are substantial. We are sometimes doesn't give you the ROI when we really compare the manpower cost involved in putting that particular thing manually into the system. That is the only challenge which we have today. But at the same time, the RPA implementation or automation can be put onto the manufacturing side also. Today, on the manufacturing line, you will see that at the end of the line, there is a supervisor who is sitting only to enter the production confirmations into the system. If we are able to automate that particular part by any means, that is going to really give you the benefit that that technical person can be utilized for the technical core value, not for entering the data into the system. Because supervisor is a highly paid person as compared to a worker who is a blue collar guy who is sitting on the line. So we are not utilizing the supervisor for the real job to monitor the things that the quality products are being manufactured. Is the line working fine or not? Whether my plant versus actual is really happening into or not. But he is doing data entry, putting the production into line so that you are able to generate the FG and then do the invoicing. So this is one activity which can be really automated from there. And second is once you start tasting the benefits of the RPA, you are really can put it anywhere whenever there is a repeat.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Anyone else who has got any questions for our panelists?
Yeah, I have one question.
Sure, please.
My name is Vikas. Okay. That's it. So, and it's open to the panelists. Whosoever can answer. The question is very simple. Let's talk about data analytics. Transforming into a business analytics. Giving some meaningful. बड़ा अच्छा लगता है very interesting. I will implement some tool and I will get some kind of I will get some decision. Many times we have this process, the process of adoption, takes a lot of energy from both the sides, from the implementation partner as well as the person who is going to analyze the data, and third one who is going to consume this, and fourth one the person who is going to take this. I'm doing a devil advocate show. So to ignite the discussion, somebody from this area can also answer. So it's open. How this journey should be moved? Because I have seen many companies, they are giving some kind of data analytics. Decision भी आता है, but वो decision जल्दी challenge भी होता है. Because what happens जब हम data को उठाते हैं, pick up करते हैं, pull करते हैं, या mine करते हैं, so a lot of things are missed out, and many things which are even not captured. So decision निकलता है वो artificially थोड़ा सा provocative होता है. So how, I'm not talking about even technology. It should be kind of augmented reality or AI should be introduced. So the data should be mined out of it. Kind of system that I'm thinking that should be this question is there.
Because I will take the question first, I think Jyoti second that will take it. I will take the example of an EV vehicle when we talk about. We're talking about driverless cars. Right? You're saying that the implementation of data analytics is not that good as you thought. When we talk about a driverless car, how exactly is that moving? Is it not based on the data only? We are collecting the data when a battery is moving onto the road, it is just taking pictures only and sending it to the central processing unit to see what exactly is in front of me and what decision I have to take. That is the time taken by that particular vehicle to decide whether I have to move or I have to stop or I have to give a horn, whatever exactly has to be done. So that is only based because of the data analytics and the AI part of it, which is there into it. We are able to do that particular things. Secondly, when we are talking about an electrical vehicle, as Jen talked about that, we are talking about the preventive maintenance to be done into the vehicle. Giving it to the insurance companies or to the manufacturer itself, that what exactly which part is going to fail. how much my vehicle has traveled, so that I should tell that guy that okay, your service is due. I think so. We really see that modern cars, the day your 7,500 kilometers are over, start giving service due, service due. There is all analytics now. It is there into your vehicle itself. I think so. In the starting, you really said that it is good that it takes time to get anything done. It is the quality of data which you are feeding into the analytic engine. It is not that you just put junk into it and you expect the whole to come out. You have to massage the data properly before feeding into the engine so that it gives you a meaningful result out of it. You cannot expect that you put garbage into the analytic engine and you say, I want the analysis to be coming out of it. So, going forward, the quality of data is going to play a big role when we talk about any analytical or AI or ML part of it to be implemented in any organization. I hope
you really answered my question very well. Now, I'm just coming to the second question because it came out from what we have answered.
Your exam is not yet
Finished. My next question, but from the same question.
So before you start with your question, I would also like to just add one more aspect here, that quality of data is very important to start with. But other than that, identifying the red flag thresholds, that is also important. And at what point in time you need to raise a red flag and you need to highlight it as an event. So writing those algorithms based on actual scenarios is very important. And going forward, these algorithms could be self-learning also. But in the first place, these algorithms and these red flag thresholds need to be strong.
Right. So I think the second question यही था पहले तो इसी में थोड़ा सा point ये था कि it's very difficult to clean the data because when the data is getting mined उस time पे because it's similar like a cold pit I'm digging to find a coal उसमें उस वक्त मैं उसको refining start करता था the process ये ना whatever I'm going to dig it has moved out so that is data mining. Data जाएगा, you have to mine everything. Now the cleaning operation. The cleaning operation is also very difficult because at that time, my decision is going to come out at a later stage. So how I should differentiate the data? Right now, that this is meaningful, this is not meaningful. And if I discharge that data that is not meaningful, my decision will be something different.
Now I talked about the process of result control equality. Right? I'm producing say 1,000 parts of my line in 1 hour. If I am finding the pattern as per my requirement, as per my master data which I have created in the starting, why would I like to push that data to my analytic engine to really take a decision? If that data is okay, I have to discard the data over here and just put it into a separate thing. And whatever I am finding an analogy that okay, this particular thing is not as per the requirement, I have to put it into the analytic engine to take a decision whether I have to stop my line or I have to stop my part or whatever I have to do. So that is data massaging I am talking about. You cannot move everything to the analytic engine just to see that okay whether it is good or bad. So with the machine learning coming into the picture, that machines will be learning by itself. Then okay, what is good or what is bad, and then based on that particular thing only, they will be pushing the data to the central server or taking an answer.
So thank you for answering both the questions passionately and efficiently.
Hey, Charu, can we take one question from the virtual world? Are you able to hear us?
Sure. Can you please have the question?
Hey, hi, this is Amin Basha, connected from the US. I'm taking care of RPAC for Mechanical in the United States for North America. So I have a question for UiPath that I just wanted to understand that is there any advancements that we are planning on UiPath that is targeting the manufacturing and in industry in the near future or somewhere? Or is there any already done in the recent past that is there anything that we can talk about those advancements on UiPath?
I mean, is this question open for all our panelists, or do you have anybody in particular that you want this question to?
This is for UiPath, RPA representatives.
Sure. And who would like to answer Amin's question?
I don't think so anybody is representing UI path over here. So sorry, we can hear it. Yeah.
Sure, I'll just pass on the mic to you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. So hi, Ami. This is Rohit from UiPath.
Hey, Rohit.
So see, there are multiple aspects to this. One is the technology itself, right? The automation technology. So there are a lot of advancements happening in the automation technology itself. So there are a lot of things like semantic automation, or things like we are building unified apps, which shall be coming in future in subsequent quarters, which will have many more additional capabilities. That is one aspect as far as automation technology itself is concerned. You will hear a lot about semantic automation in upcoming quarters, where you can simply copy and paste and your automation workflows will be created. So this is on the technology aspect. Second is the application aspect of the automation technologies. So if you look at automation, it started with more on the horizontal functions of any industry, right? HR processes or financial and accounting processes or legal processes, right? More horizontal functions, the shared services kind of functions. But what we are increasingly seeing now for the last couple of years is the adoption of automation, software automation, I'm talking about, more on the other line of businesses like supply chain, production, operations, maintenance, R&D, customer service. So a lot of other functions are also getting adopting automation a lot. That's what we have been seeing in India as well. That is the trend. We have few customers who have started their journey in these new areas as well. So this is my perspective on it. I hope I answered your question.
Yep. Thank you very much, Rohit. That answers my question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit, and thank you, Amin.
Hi, Jay. Hi, Jay.
So I have a question regarding the industry. So all the manufacturers talking about that 2-wheelers and 4-wheelers. But what about the charging stations? Like right now, there is 2 models in the charging. One is like swapping stations, and second is called the charging stations. So if we talk about the timing, so definitely swapping stations give an immediate charge battery instead of a charging station. So what's your point of view on that?
Right. So the requirement of charging typically depends upon the use case the vehicle is put onto. You would be surprised to know that EV can do a complete day's job without even it being required to be charged at a charging station. So very few people know this, but there are 2 sorts of charging. One is a AC charging and one is a DC charging. So AC charging is something which is done through the onboard charger, which is there built up in the vehicle, or an offboard charger which is provided with the vehicle. And if I take the example of these last mile delivery vehicles which are being implemented by majority e-commerce companies right now, these vehicles on an average travel for a range of 70, 80, 100 kilometers a day. And that trip is very well supported through the charging which is done at the hub itself. So the charging, the use case for a charging station would be more apt for a personal vehicle or a long haul vehicle, wherein the vehicle needs to be charged on an intermittent basis on the trip. So that is one of the aspects. And even for the city vehicles, the last mile delivery or the passenger vehicles, swapping also makes a strong case. But it's swapping, the individual challenges are there, that the swapping stations are still not standardized. So one OEM may be accustomed or compatible with one sort of a swapping station and another OEM with another one. So that is something which needs to take place, but still the adaptation has already started taking place. and it is not really dependent on the charging station network to come out.
So you talk about the sessions. I think Gogoro model is already very successful in that.
Absolutely.
So one more question I had, like you talk about we are generating a lot of data from the different parts. You said like finance companies will get the data and other manufacturers will get the data from that. Even the company who is who having that TV also get that. So definitely there is a gap here for the softwares. Like right now, I don't think like in the market the software is available. You can take up the data from the TVs and then keep the analysis as per the financial services or give us the results as per the manufacturers. So, what's your point?
So, all the data is not required by everyone. So, what a manufacturer can do or a fleet operator can do is basically make the relevant data available to the relevant stakeholder through APIs. So, the data doesn't need to be demonstrated on a platform. It could be simply sent in the form of packets to the concerned person, and every concerned entity could have their own interface to interpret the relevant data packet. So we need to make it compressed, we need to make it transmittable. So it doesn't need to be facilitated through a software. So it is just done through the entire API based model.
Do not think like there is a software on the basis of authorizations. So whoever wants the data having authorization can take the data from that software and use it for their own purpose.
Definitely, but everyone likes the data to be in the format which is acceptable for their own processing. So having a centralized software is not also going to help that problem, and more or less the challenges of data privacy and the data confidentiality are also there. So no one would be comfortable to share all data sets with one person. So it is more suitable that the person should be provided the data in the format they accept, so that the processing of the data becomes simpler for them.
Just one last question. We talk about the lithium and the EV vehicle. So, what's your point of view, like on the fuel cells technology and that which is lithium technology?
Fuel cell technology is definitely going to be a revolution, and we'll have to wait for it to become commercially viable. So, technology is not evolution of something new. Technology is basically increasing the accessibility of the solution at a commercially acceptable price point. So when it becomes viable for everyone, definitely that is going to cause another revolution. Like EVs are become acceptable right now because they have become commercially viable.
Thanks. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Angus. We have one more question for you. Yes, please.
Hi, Mr. Yogesh. This question is a bit environmental kind of question. Like we are with data, we are also generating a lot of we are somehow polluting the environment, right? So is there like can automation also help reduce or maybe control that section or maybe that particular area?
Really could not get your question that how data is
Not just data, like for data, for computerization, you are using energy, right? Electricity is being used. For producing electricity, there are a lot of other sources that they are using, and with that, somehow we are polluting, right?
Maybe you are a cryptocurrency mining.
AI also.
There's a lot of energy. But the question I think question is saying that since it has a byproduct of creating a lot of nuances, including the pollution, right? Is there any initiative of automation which can help reduce that?
Yeah, kind of. The question was this.
Okay.
Very difficult to answer this particular part as of now because I think the boss wants to answer that.
I mean, you are not on Wikipedia, so that's okay. Yeah.
I've been in IT industry since 1977. Right. At that point of time, the PC used to consume from 500 watts. Right. Today it consumes 60 watts. Right.
And going forward, 10 years down the line, we see it continuing towards. Right? So the energy content produced on computing power is dramatically. Your phone runs on a 100 units battery for 20 hours, 70 hours, right? It has more power than PC of 90s. So I think so that is the trend that power consumption will go down. Right.
Thank you very much. We have any questions for our panelists? Anyone from the audience? Online audience? All right. Thank you so much to all our panelists for their valuable time, and we really had a great session with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Now is the time for some ice-breaking session, which will be fairly engaging and will also provide you with the opportunity to win some exciting prizes. However, there is a catch. We will randomly select one of you, and whoever successfully responds will receive a special present from us. And we will keep barging in between to keep this excitement running. Are you ready, Azar?
Absolutely, Charu. Let's start with our first question. Who is the CEO of Air India 2022? Current CEO of Air India 2022.
Can we Google it?
That
All
option is
right,
not
codes
there.
are not allowed. Nobody can Google anything.
No, yes, no one is going to use Google or any of the social media, please. Do you want to answer, sir? It is approved.
It's not yet approved.
That's right.
His Turkey connection.
That's right. There's a background verification going on.
Unless the Ministry of Home Affairs approve, his appointment will not be approved by them. I heard it is. But he's right. After the Ministry of Home Affairs approve, it will go to the personal department of President. Still. Not counted, but not counted.
It's he has already appointed.
Because of his past connection.
Yes.
Turkey connection.
Turkish, he worked for Turkish Airlines. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Thank you. Moving on to our next question. And I would randomly pick someone from the audience, so please be ready. Which global companies allow pets to the workplace?
Google.
Absolutely.
That's the right answer. Thank you so much.
Small chat, please. Kindly applause.
Thank you all our panelists and audience for such an enthusiastic session. Our first speaker of the event is the Director for Sales Engineering for Manufacturing and Industrial Sector in UiPath. He has around 20 years of work experience in AI, IoT, automation, and cloud technologies. His prior experiences include working with IBM, American Express, SAS, and Tata Motors. He is currently engaged in creating thought leadership content and roadmap for intelligent automation in industrial scenarios. Please welcome Rohit Kumar to come and speak on intelligent automation, path to digital transformation for manufacturing and automotive.
Yes. Good evening to all of you. Thanks, Chuck. So I feel, whatever I'm going to speak, already panelists have touched upon most of the points. But in any case, I will put forward a UI-path point of view on manufacturing. As you know, UI-path is a software automation company, robotic process automation company. So what I shall discuss today is about intelligent automation. How does it lead to digital transformation? And how does it help you reduce costs or increase operational efficiency, increase customer and employee engagement? And that is how we re-envision manufacturing industries. Next one, please. So we'll start with the themes, right? So these are the three themes, right? Three themes, or you can call it paradigms. Three paradigms or pillars of how we think of automation in manufacturing domain. The first paradigm is reimagine. How do you envision your R&D, research and development, your products and services, and the purpose for good for your business? Say about ESG or the sustainability kind of moves. The second pillar is about your operations and integrated supply chain logistics. Third pillar or third paradigm is about engage, which is about how do you improve client experiences, how do you empower your employees, how do you improve their productivity and achieve more. So throughout this presentation, we shall be sticking to these themes. Right? Whatever you are going to see next will be on these three themes. So, before we decided on these three themes, we had a good conversation with our, a lot of analysts, including IDC, World Economic Forum. So it's not that it's our point of view. This is something which is also concurred by experts and neutral analysts in this domain. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So, again, you will see the same three themes here, right? Reimagining your products and services and new streams of businesses and revenue enabled by automation. This is going to be huge going forward. A smart and automated factory shall be very big value drivers for all the manufacturing industries. If you move to the second paradigm, which is about streamlining, advanced production technologies shall help businesses reduce the costs as far as 10% of their operating expenditure. And the last pillar, the engage pillar, we see two trends here essentially. One is about the automation, machines doing a lot of work instead of humans, right? The second trend is about the skill gap, right? So robotic process automation or the bots will be addressing this skill gap in a big way. That is the second trend, is the engaged pillar. So if we double click on the same themes, remaining on the same themes, let me walk you through this slide in a clockwise fashion from top. So let's talk about R&D, right? If you see on the right hand side top, So these are opportunities around how do you automate your R&D operations throughout its life cycle. Right? How do you create better products and services with automation? How do you introduce purpose in manufacturing? So this is all about your ESG, initiatives like carbon capture, carbon emissions, all of that. Then you move to the next one. Once you have the products in place, you want to streamline the production and operations. How do you infuse intelligent automation in sourcing? How do you introduce automation in end-to-end supply chain? How do you automate your operations? Right? Then moving on to the third, which is about engagement pillar. So here, it is all about how do you engage your customers by streamlining the client engagements, which drives your marketing and sales. And once your product is in the market, how do you automate customer services? And then how do you empower your employees across horizontal functions so that they can do more with less and with more accuracy? So what we have done is, having done this, we have then created our industry priority scenario. So these are the focus areas from automation perspective, wherein we are trying to focus. Right. So first is about R&D, right? Your products and services and R&D. So what do we do? Few examples, through automation, what you can do, things like, let's say, a master data management, right? Propagation of or syncing of your product forms in manufacturing, in different systems, may it be PLM systems, your dealer systems, warranty systems, right? There, automation can play a very important role. Then automation in the R&D, products itself, right? Let's say you have got a PLM system or LIMS system or testing systems. You want to automate processes there. One example can be you want to feed, let's say, warranty data into your PLM systems. So there again, automation can play a very important role. Right? Next is about operations and production. So this is all about what automation you can do in your shop floor processes. So examples can be a production planning, or let's say integrating your IoT systems, your ERP systems and MES systems. Right? Again, automation can play a very important role here. You want to automate your work permits, your safety and inspection processes. Again, automation can do that. Help you do automation in these kind of processes. Supply chain, the third theme or the third priority scenario, which is for us, things like vendor onboarding, sales and operation planning, automated vendor selection, contracts configurations in ERP, or order management. Now, all of these processes related to supply chain and logistics, again, a huge opportunity for automation in these areas. Customer engagements, the fourth one, it is all about horizontal functions, right? As I was mentioning earlier, your human resources, your financial accounting, your legal and compliance, all of those horizontal functions. Again, automation plays a very big role there. Then, the last pillar, reimagining manufacturing. This is all about your doing something with purpose, essentially around ESG. You want to do, compliance monitoring. You want to, generate some reports on your carbon emissions, carbon capture. All of that, again, automation can help you a lot with that. So moving on. These are some of the quotes, some important ones from our customers about the role of automation that has played for them individually. So starting with PepsiCo, so we have just selected few of them, few key ones. We will discuss Pepsi, Tech Mahindra, and Uber in a little more detail in subsequent slides. But just to give you an overview, Pepsi, it's all about automation on production line for packaging quality. Our panelists also touched on that theme. So we have done something with Pepsi on Pepsi for quality improvements on production line. So KUKA is a very interesting case. KUKA is a manufacturer of, as you know, physical robots. So they also focus on the process automation, especially on the ERP side and CRM side. Right? So they have built a lot of integrations between these two systems using automation. Tech Mahindra, we have built a lot of joint solutions for manufacturing customers and oil and gas customers with Tech Mahindra, about which I will talk in subsequent slides in more detail. Uber, again, we know a very fast growing company. They wanted to keep costs down. So they have applied automation in finance and operations, customer service, reporting and compliance. Clariant, it's a chemical company. Again, automation of finance operations and logistics process. So they have been able to eliminate around 40,000 printouts per quarter. Again, contribution towards ESG kind of initiatives. Valmet, the last one, bottom right. So Valmet is, as you might be knowing, it provides services for pulp, paper, and energy industries, mostly on the process side. So they have applied automation on the taxation side, VAT filing and reporting that involves data extraction, reconciliation, validation, reporting, all of that. So few selected customer codes, which are very powerful. Yes, so here what we are doing is we are talking about the fully automated enterprise and how does it help, right, in a manufacturing context. So what do we mean by fully automated enterprise for manufacturing from our perspective? So, assign automatable work to robots, so which is essentially about driving end-to-end automation across your manufacturing operations and your entire value chain. Then provide a robot for every person in your company. That is our goal, right? Ultimately, we want or we envision that each employee in your company should have his or her own robot by his side, right? Which we call it as citizen developers. Democratize development, wherein we are coming up with very easy to use tools wherein you can develop your own automations. So if you are able to use Excel, for example, you would also be able to develop your own automations using these kind of tools that we have developed. And ultimately, the last point is about unleashing AI across every facet of work, which is essentially about introducing business intelligence and AI ML models in each process. So we have built capabilities around it, which allows you to introduce AI models in every workflow, right? Which is a very key capability. For example, in sales and operations planning, in supply chain, you want to do a sales forecasting, or let's say in warehousing processes, you want to do inventory forecasting or inventory optimization. So in these processes, you can introduce your AI ML models, output of which can be used in your workflows. And all of this you can do through drag and drop. That is the beauty. So this is how we re-envision the manufacturing industry. So now we will, in fact, triple click on this reimagine theme that we started with. We shall start with examples with Tech Mahindra. One slide up. Yeah, thank you. We are working with Tech Mahindra here, which is wherein we have built joint solutions for operations, procurement, and IT side. We have collaborated with Tech Mahindra in multiple geographies, and you can see the kind of settings, right? So if you see that those blue boxes left and top, one of the oil and gas majors has saved around $3.3 million per year. Pretty big, right? So it was basically automation in their invoice processing. Next, if you notice, with another global enterprise customer, $6.3 million per year of savings through automation in procurement. Coming down, you will see another example. This is a Singapore-based customer, wherein we had a savings of 6.9 million per year. So a lot of examples, right, wherein we are collaborating with our partners like Tech Mahindra in multiple geographies and working with a lot of manufacturing customers. So what is the business value, right? What is the business value that this reimagine theme brings to the table? Right? It is essentially about how do you make your processes faster, more efficient, bring in more quality? And this is something which we are not saying. Obviously, we have done some analysis on this, but this is also the viewpoint of consultants like McKinsey or even World Economic Forum. Right? That automation, on an average, reduces time to market. It helps you with cross-functional operations, cross-functional information data exchange, right? Different applications, different systems. You can reduce your engineering hours, and then it also helps you moving towards your zero defect products theme. Coming to the next paradigm that we have on streamlining. So this is all about your operations and end-to-end supply chains and logistics. So here we have worked with Pepsico. So a very advanced use case about packaging and labeling. So we had developed AI models for it, wherein we are matching the products being developed on the production line with the labels that gets fixed on them, right? So it was essentially about making sure that there are no errors in labels getting fixed on the bottles or any omissions in the labels, right? So all those quality kind of use cases. The pretty strong use cases. We have now continued the journey with PepsiCo, and we are now getting into many other maintenance and production kind of use cases. So what does it bring? What is the business value which that you derive from automating operations? Right? It makes you get more faster, more cost efficient, and also in stock. Right? So things like OEE, overall equipment efficiency, you can potentially improve it by almost 35%. Lead time, right? 33% better delivery. Cost of goods sold, again, you can reduce your cost. Inventory, the automation in your logistics and supply chain can also help you with reducing the inventory itself. A lot of benefits. Coming to the third theme, engage, which is again, as we spoke of earlier, it's more about client experience. How do you improve the client experience, and how do you empower your employees? So here we have a use case from Uber. So this was we got engaged with Uber for automating their financial and customer facing operations and business processes. So you can see the kind of benefits that they derive, right? So it's just about 100 plus processes. On the right hand top, you will notice that they have automated around 100 plus processes. But the benefits you see, right, and it's upwards of $10 million. So it's pretty huge. Idea here is that if you apply automation carefully and diligently, there is a lot to be made out of, both in terms of cost reduction and also revenue increase. So what kind of business values do you see through this engaged team? So essentially labor productivity, right? You can see you can do more with less, right? That is what this is about. You can increase the speed, the sales process speed, the faster cycle time, the cost savings, right? 10 to 45%. Then reporting and controls, right? Compliance and retention. So basically, your employees do not spend their time in menial tasks. They spend their time more value added and tasks which require more thinking. So that is why they are more happy. So this was about the three themes in more detail. Now we'll quickly move to what is the value narrative in manufacturing, right? So again, we have few examples here. What we have been doing in manufacturing, few selected customer success stories, just a sample list. So with a first column, if you notice, we have done with an automotive company, wherein we have around 370K hours saved, more than 2,000 plus processes we have automated there. Obviously, we have been engaged in for a pretty long time, 4+ years, and they have been using multiple products from our bouquet, and they have essentially automated in every other business process, may it be supply chain, or may it be their finance operations, or may it be their HR operations, we are everywhere. Second example, second column, consumer products. Here you will notice again we have been engaged for a pretty long time, 4+ years, more than 1,000+ processes automated, and here we have also done automation in core operations, manufacturing areas, in R&D, and also in sales and marketing. Right? So multiple areas. Applied materials. Applied materials, if you don't know, it's a semiconductor manufacturing company. The journey has been 2+ years now, and we are doing a lot of work in the finance area, finance and IT area, right? IT automation and finance automation. Clarion, the last one, the last column. This is a chemicals company. Here again, we are very deep into their finance and procurement processes, invoice processing. We have been there for around 2+ years, and we have done a lot of automation in procurement, logistics, shipping orders, and invoice processing. Right? So these are few of the examples which are truly representative of what we have been doing in the market. Right? So now, why we have been or how we have been able to do this? Obviously, there is a huge ecosystem there in place which helps us do this. So alliances, right? The strategic partnerships. So we'll see. We have picked up only few with Accenture, for example. So we are engaged with Accenture to create an accelerated growth program, which is essentially about building solutions and pre-built solutions for manufacturing clients. PwC. So PwC has a Perform platform, which is the name of the platform is Perform, which is essentially about operational improvement methodology. So again, PwC is collaborating with us in creating pre-built components using UI path automation. The last one in the first pillar, the bottom, Deloitte. So we are very proud of this. With Deloitte, we are creating a smart factory at Wichita. Wichita is in Kansas in US. So we are building a whole smart factory, a model factory, wherein we are collaborating with a lot of other vendors as well. Vendors like your Rockwell Automation and Hitachi to build a smart factory, wherein you will see a lot of processes in manufacturing and production space being automated. The second pillar, if you see, please go back. Yeah, the strategic partners. So we have Ashling partners, Capgemini, Roboyo. You will see a lot of industry priority scenarios that you saw earlier. We are collaborating with these people to create very specific pointed solutions as well. With ISVs, Cognizant, we are working with mostly on the discovery solution. So we have a bouquet of solutions on the discovery side, using which you can find out the bottlenecks in your processes using AI. So we are working with Cognizant to do something on order management side. In the process discovery. With Druid, we are collaborating with them on the chatbot side. With Lumen, we are collaborating on edge analytics. So they generate the alert. Lumen generates the alerts, and we generate a work order, a corresponding work order in SAP ERP, for example. So these kind of use cases we are doing with Lumen, and we are building a packaged solution for these kind of use cases. So industrial partners, the last column on the right hand side, you will notice that we are collaborating with OEMs, industrial partners. With Hitachi, for example, they have got a Lumada platform. We are trying to sell through and sell with them. They are incorporating UI path automation in their platform. Same goes for Rockwell Automation and Zeiss. So, so this is the final slide. So what are we missing if you are not doing this, or what you are gaining if you are doing this, right? So essentially, lead time reduction, accelerated time to market, lot size reduction, which is essentially about being able to produce in smaller batches, factory output increase, very relevant, very catchy benefits, and this is something which is again corroborated with consultants like McKinsey and World Economic Forum, right? Operating cost reduction, also inventory reduction. So a lot of benefits, a lot of practical benefits, not going beyond hours saving only, right? So real business KPIs improvements. So with this, I would like to thank McKinsey for organizing and inviting us for this meet. They are very strong UiPath partners, as you have already seen. They have a solid RPA COE with deep capabilities on retail side, manufacturing side. So we are very pleased to be engaged with them. So now I am open for any questions and comments. This was my last slide. Thank you so much.
Hey, hi Rohit, this is Amin here. Rohit, I have a
Yes.
question. Just wanted to know how manufacturing industries can get help on ESG, the environmental, social, and governance area with the automation, especially with the UiPath and RPA.
Right. Thanks, Amin. So that's a good question. ESG is a new area, ESG sustainability. There is a lot of focus in this area. One of the reasons being now the financiers, are asking for what you are doing. So this is now getting into boardroom discussions as well. So it gets very important, obviously. So see, I mean, things like capture, verify, monitor, and report emissions, right? So that is one area where automation can play a very important role. And across supply chain, not only limited to your upstream or downstream, also in-house, right? Right from your sourcing to production to distribution, all the emissions monitoring, that is something where automation can play a very important role. Then you things like the regular monitoring, right? May be monitoring of your electricity or water or steam or CO2, right? Again, automation has a role to play. On the social side, because ESG, as we know, it's environment, social, and governance. On the social side, there are things like with respect to health and safety. For example, in current scenario, you can think of COVID health surveys for your employees. That is something which can easily be done through automation, or grievance chatbots, right? That you can provide to your customers or employees, both externally or internally. Or on the social side, think about attended robots for each employee. Right? So there are a lot of these kind of opportunities. On the governance side, in ESG space, think of automation for internal audits or compliance tracking and reporting, right? So or automated vendor performance checks, ensuring ESG compliance for your vendors or your suppliers. Again, automation can play a very important role. So this is just a brief what you can do in the ESG space. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, Rohit, thank you very much for that.
Okay. Any more questions we have from the audience? I think that's good. Thank you so much, all of you. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kumar, for such an insightful session. Let's move on further. I would want to provide a brief overview of the automotive industry, as we are here to create innovative and personalized experiences, as well as to increase operational efficiency and resilience through manufacturing and automotive information. And while the industry has developed dramatically throughout the years, so has technology and our environmental stewardship. Due to their extremely low to zero carbon emissions, low noise, great efficiency and flexibility in grid operation and integration, electric vehicles are a viable technology for establishing a sustainable transportation sector in the future and can be viewed as a feasible strategy for mitigating the effects of climate change. Our second speaker of the evening is the CEO and co-founder at Alt Mobility, India's first dedicated leasing platform for commercial electric vehicles and will now enlighten us on the topic, de-risking commercial electric vehicle finance. Please give a huge round of applause to Mr. Dev Arora.
Thanks, Charu, for the introduction. So to give you a quick background about our team, we're actually, the entire team of co-founders is actually sustainability entrepreneurs. We previously had our ventures in solar, where we were putting up a distributed solar PV projects for corporates and selling power at half the price at what the electricity companies were selling. Solar reached grid parity about in 2015. That's when we started our kind of venture in solar PV. And now, 6 years later, solar currently represents about renewable energy overall represents about 40% of India's generation mix. So 40% of total generation India power produces is coming from renewable energy today. And that's quite exciting because it's all happened in the last 6 years. And I believe that we're going to now see we're at the precipice of transformation in the mobility space. And we have all the stakeholders in the automobile sector today. So I'm sure you're all aware about how the transformation is happening, and all of this is going to happen in the next decade. I'm here to talk about the starting and beginning of this sector where we are today. And the thesis that I built along with my co-founders was really around again, when you have a sustainability kind of a product or solution, it alone is not enough to reach a mainstream market, to reach down to the bottom of the pyramid, to reach out to the entire stakeholders in the industry. It becomes very important for that product to be affordable. It has to be competitive and viable with respect to existing technologies which are being used. In this case, we're really talking about combustion engines. Combustion engine vehicle technology has been around for decades, and electric vehicles themselves are more efficient. They've been around for a while, but the reason why they really haven't taken off is because they never made commercial sense. EVs are great for the environment, they're more efficient, they don't generate any air pollution. But at the end of the day, the reason why we never hit that milestone is because EVs weren't commercially sustainable. And so we're at a stage today that EVs have suddenly become a buzzword. And I think we're all aware why that is. That's because petrol reached $100. And so as the price of fuel went up, the total cost of ownership of owning an electric vehicle got to a stage where it has become more commercially feasible. So while the upfront cost may be slightly higher today with subsidies, it is almost equal to a combustion engine vehicle. But when you introduce the overall cost of fuel, which is the operational cost of a vehicle, we have kind of reached a stage where we are now beating combustion engine vehicles hands down. And so it's a really exciting space to be. And the area that me and my partners have kind of started focusing on is how do we enable access to finance to promote this technology and make this viable in the industry today. So I'll talk about the market. We're at the beginning of this market. Today, unlike the West where Teslas are kind of running the roads, the revolution in India is kind of triggered by the logistics sector, which is two-wheelers and three-wheelers. That's the first sector in India that's really taken off. We're seeing a significant amount of traction. You would see on the roads today with delivery vehicles that are delivering to your doorstep. There's a big chance that it's going to be electric. So the first companies that really came around and said that we're going to go all electric were logistic companies. We're talking about the e-commerce giants, Amazon and Flipkart. They've made a commitment in the next 10 years, they're going to go all electric, 100%. They said 10 years, it's going to happen in the next 3 years. 100% of the commercial electric fleet is going to be, the commercial fleet is going to be fully electric in the very, very near future. And we're talking to companies, all the advanced companies that have made climate commitments from Amazon and Flipkart. We're talking to new age logistic companies, which are delivery, let's transport, and aggregators. We're also talking to conventional companies which are operating in the logistics space, and all of them have kind of come around and tried and tested electric vehicles over the last year with us. And they've seen that EVs today can match the performance of combustion engine vehicles. They can give sufficient range. They can give sufficient payload and volumetric capacity. In some cases, we're still lagging in kind of getting there to reach the product market fit. But what they've really understood is, more importantly, the economics are making sense. And I think that's what we're going to talk about in the next slide. So EVs are becoming mainstream. We're selling about, so the challenges that exist in the sector today with respect to that transition happening, and what that really became a core focus for us, was really understanding and speaking to companies on the ground and understanding what are the barriers that they're facing with respect to having EVs completely transitioning and transforming their fleets. And the answer that we got was that the first problem was with regards to product reliability, that EVs were trying to meet the performance and range requirements, which I was speaking about earlier. And new age OEMs are coming up, who we have partnered with, who are coming up and giving equivalent performance to combustion engine vehicles. These are all first generation electric vehicles. And so because of the kind of issues that come around with the new technology, somebody told me that EVs are kind of in a state where it's 1960s of the automobile sector, because everything is so new. But we're advancing really quickly with respect to technologies evolving, and new OEMs are coming up and radically transforming battery technology, energy storage, and motor technology. So we're going to get to a stage where technology does become reliable over the years. The second challenge that is faced is the lack of charging infrastructure and support that is required to run EVs. And that is being addressed by multiple companies coming in, making investments in setting up charging infrastructure. The government is giving a great push with coming up with innovative policies to ensure that highways are lit up, cities are lit up, and we're all up in a place to put that charging infrastructure in place. The one area that is currently not being solved, which we understood, was financing. So when you buy a vehicle today, it's typically 80 to 90% financed by a bank. With electric vehicles, banks have suffered a lot in the past, because the first vehicles that actually ran on the road you would be seeing actually all over today are e-rickshaws. Banks suffered huge defaults because the technologies used within the e-rickshaws were not sufficient to last for the entire tenure of the loan. They would go out in 6 months and the customer would default, or the driver would default on their payments. And so banks are very apprehensive today. Almost none of the conventional banks today finance electric vehicles. There are new age NBFCs which are charging interest rates over 25%, 35%, which is significant. So the kind of thesis that we took was to basically let the OEM solve the product challenge. And we know that there are great companies out there which are innovating and improving their technologies on a daily basis. We know there's a lot of companies working in the infrastructure space. We started focusing around the financing aspect and how we can make it affordable. But we went beyond and said that how can we radically change and de-risk commercial vehicle finance, which became our core thesis of the company. And so the way that we went about this is that we partnered with great OEMs. We didn't say we were going to partner with the largest OEMs in the market, because the largest OEMs typically did not have sufficient back-end technology experience. It was the new age entrepreneurs and OEMs that were really coming up with the radical technologies. So we started for OEMs which are doing some great work. We field tested them, our customers field tested them, and we brought them on board, so today we have an onboarding process for OEMs that we undertake, and we do extensive due diligence all the way down to the cell levels and the battery pack to understand what is the viability of this vehicle. We take these OEMs and we created a leasing model. So compared to commercial, traditional commercial finance, it is typically the bank which loans the vehicles to the drivers in the current model. But what we were seeing as a trend was that drivers did not want ownership of electric vehicles. They were very apprehensive about how to fix an EV, how to operate an EV, not giving enough range. They had a lot of apprehensions still today. So the big step that logistic companies took was really coming in and saying that we are going to come in and introduce electric vehicles, but we are not in the business of owning vehicles. So Alt was really created as a platform which acted as a bridge between OEMs and logistic companies to essentially own and finance these vehicles on a leasing model in which we finance these vehicles 100%. We take care of the service and maintenance aspects of the vehicle, road tax and registrations. And we lease them out for a fixed monthly rental for a period of about 3 years to these companies, B2B companies, to allow them to have zero barriers with respect to introducing an electric vehicle into their fleets. So the drivers which are working with these companies would typically be mapped to each vehicle that we offer. So, for example, delivery would be operating some of our vehicles on the road today. We would lease out the vehicles to delivery, and delivery would then map each of the vehicles to the driver partner. And within a period of 3 years, the driver partner would become the owner of the vehicle. So it's a lease-to-own model, helping them increase the earning capacity of drivers. Can you go to the slide? I'll tell you. Yeah, you can go next. Yeah, right. So this is how we're this is how electric vehicles are kind of transforming the commercial vehicle space. If you look at the cost of fuel today for operating a monthly basis for an electric vehicle, it comes out to about 14,000 rupees per month if a vehicle is driving for 100 kilometers per day for 26 days a month. If you look at the cost of operating an electric vehicle for the same route, same duration, same kilometers, it's 1,800 rupees. That's a significant difference, right? That's transformative. That is the kind of difference that's going to break an industry. And so we have structured our leases in a way that we take care of the core apprehensions of the EV industry, which is the service and maintenance, which is the financing of the vehicle at an affordable cost, and ensure all of this through a technology platform. So within each of the vehicles that we put out there, EVs are super smart, they're all connected, and every single component of an EV is sending out data, like Jayant was mentioning earlier. We capture all of this information from the OEMs, and we analyze that data to do preventive and corrective maintenance alerts and diagnostics. It helps us understand not just the bankability and usability of the end customer, how much uptime. It also helps us understand how much uptime a vehicle is giving, how often we need to bring it in for a service. We're able to predict and maintain these vehicles in a way that allows us to become more efficient than a combustion engine operating on the road today. And so the thesis really became us as a platform which is aggregating vehicles from OEMs, bringing them on the road and being an interface towards operating them with logistic companies, and ensuring that we're able to give the highest uptime, ensuring that we're able to increase the profitability and bottom line for logistic companies, and ensuring that our driver partners are able to increase their earnings while switching to electric. So switching to electric is not just about sustainability, it's now about also making an increase on the bottom line. And we're seeing a lot of companies coming up with ambitious plans to completely transform their fleets now to electric in the next 3 to 5 years. So every single commercial vehicle that you'll be seeing on the road, currently our focus is on 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers. We're going to be expanding to 4-wheelers, we're going to be expanding to trucks. We're basically looking at the entire value chain of commercial vehicles and understanding how we can create a viable economic proposition to ensure that we're able to not just reduce the carbon footprint of transportation, but also at the same time improve the bottom line for the business. That's the kind of core thesis that we're developing as a platform. Yeah, so that's what else. Questions? Yeah. Any questions?
from audience? Any questions? Online, anyone want to ask any questions?
Yes. So what is the growth of EVs in India in past 2 years, 3 years?
In terms of a number, we're seeing, I think, we're seeing a monthly sale of about 80,000 in case of light commercial vehicles. In the case of in the case of two-wheelers, that number is going to be about about a couple of lakhs. So overall penetration in terms of, if you ask me, total penetration of electric vehicles would be less than 2%. But the growth is more than doubling every year. So the kind of penetration that we're seeing is significantly increasing. I don't have the exact numbers, to be honest. We know how much each OEM is kind of producing, but no, I don't have a count. But we're seeing a significant increase in sales of EVs.
Okay. My second question is, I can understand the problem in repaying the loan by three-wheeler, two-wheeler, okay. But person who is buying a four-wheeler is a different class actually. So we really find that there will be problem in the, can say, repaying the loans there.
Yeah, problem what? Sorry.
Repaying the loans.
So our contracts are directly with B2B companies. So we would have a direct contract with, let's say, a delivery. And the company would then be responsible for ensuring that our payment comes in on time. So we're not directly lending to the driver as of yet. We are building a fintech solution that allows us to also capture the driver's credit history and eventually get into the retail market as well. But the idea is that even if a driver, for example, stops paying or is unable to pay or leaves, it would be the responsibility of the logistic company to redeploy the vehicle with another partner. That is the model that we're currently working on.
Your concern is about the cab drivers mostly,
Okay.
or the private owners. Okay, a person who is taking a vehicle for personal use, may not be that vulnerable to not to pay the loans at all. But yes, the driver maybe he has some problems, financial problems. So I could not understand this. Three-wheeler has a problem. Four-wheeler drivers may be having problem, but the private owners who want to buy a EV, so why should he pay 25% of it from EV? When he's paying, all the loan on time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference between the commercial vehicle finance market and the private vehicle finance market. I mean, if you go to get a Tata Nexon finance today, you'll probably not have an issue, probably getting the same interest rate. But if you look at the commercial vehicle finance industry, the current interest rates for a commercial vehicle are 18%. If you go 16 to 18% for combustion engine vehicles, so your regular conventional vehicles. If you look at the EV space, the interest rates are exceeding 25 to 35%. So there is, that is largely because there is a large, you're not just underwriting the risk of the customer, you're also underwriting the risk of the technology not being backed. Right, so lenders do not have that confidence in the underlying technology, which is why the interest rates are much higher. What we are trying to change is, like I mentioned, we believe our core thesis of the platform is that EVs are less risky to finance than even conventional vehicles. So we see the cost of our interest rates significantly reducing beyond even what you can get for a standard vehicle on the road. So that is the core thesis that we're working together as a company, and having access to a lot of data on the ground, a lot more data on the ground than a commercial, combustion engine vehicle, will allow us to basically reduce and become more efficient in terms of how we lend. So it is our underwriting capabilities as a platform to underwrite the asset as well as the customer, because we're able to generate so much data from the vehicle, that we're able to reduce that cost of finance.
So anyway, you are talking the risk in commercial vehicles, not in the private.
Purely commercial vehicles. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else who has got some questions?
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Many thanks, Dave. I must say that it was extremely well articulated and informative. I am confident that we have all gained knowledge and enjoyment from the fantastic session. And we wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors, Dave. Now that we have moved on, it's time for some further questions. Are you all prepared? What does M&M stands for? Brand is for chocolates. I repeat, what does M&M stands for?
I would like to answer that question. All right, we have someone from behind.
I think Mars and
Correct.
That's right.
Correct.
Thank you. Next question is, which company launched Saavdhan Rahe, Safe Rahe, a public awareness campaign? We have one more hands. That's right. It's Bajaj Finserv. I think he guessed it right. Thank you. We would like to congratulate all of our winners, and it's not finished yet. We will continue to perform this quiz in between rounds for an added adrenaline boost. Let's move on to our next and the last speaker of the evening. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Green Evolve Private Limited and has over 30 years of experience in power electronics, energy storage, lithium-ion batteries, and battery management systems. He earned his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from IIT Madras and will be the guest speaker on the topic Optimal Management of Lithium-Ion Battery Packs. Please extend a warm welcome to Sanjay Agarwal.
Thank you. I am probably cutting into your dinner time, so being the last speaker, probably, sorry, I'll be short. I've been in technology since 1977. I started off with Hindustan Computers, and then I had my own software company. We were making compilers, operating systems. In 1985, I moved to power electronics. Over the period of time, there were many issues raised here, and I will sum it up. This is IT. The importance is not IT, the importance is domain knowledge. That is the core thing which we are missing. Currently, I am getting engineers joining my company, basically electronics. They can do simulation very well on a computer, but give them an op-amp circuit or a hardware circuit, they are all at sea. So the essence in engineering is not data, but is your domain knowledge. How do you see the data? So that is something we have to focus on. Now, coming to lithium and EVs, which is the current topic and the hot topic of the year or decade, whatever you may call it. How many of you are interested in EVs? Hands up, please. Okay. EVs have an advantage in certain aspects. You may call it a social advantage, a social moral advantage, also an operating advantage. But it has certain constraints. We have to realize those constraints. When we buy an electric vehicle, you cannot substitute it for an IC engine vehicle. You cannot expect an EV vehicle to take you 4,000 miles or 300 miles or 400 miles. No. So when you're selecting an EV vehicle, please define your need, right? And see what need it substitutes. I mean, I would recommend that you have two vehicles, one an IC engine vehicle which is parked in your garage or somewhere which you use for long hauls, and an EV vehicle for your daily needs. That would work fine. But there are certain cautions. The lithium-ion cell has a life of 15 years. All right. But it cannot be abused. Now, when you buy a lithium-ion cell, like in any electronics, I found three phases of life in my experimentation. One is what I call infant mortality. Right? The new cell has come and it has initial problems. You can circumvent this problem by buying costly cells, cattle or some of the top A-rated cells, but those are not available. They are way beyond our budget. The other way is to recondition the cells slowly at the first stage. For that, you need to slowly recharge your pack and slowly discharge it. जैसे हम लोग नई गाड़ी लेते हैं तो इंजन को रमा करते हैं, तो आप भी अपनी बैटरी पैक को रमा कीजिए, वो ज्यादा चलेगी, right? The second area is the area where it's in a mature performance. Now there, the things that will affect your happiness or cause you to change your battery pack in 3 years or 2 years is temperature. Temperatures are a big killer for lithium-ion cells, right? To give you some data, if you keep your cell at 55 degrees centigrade, you will lose 4.5% of your capacity per year. So that means in 3 years' time, you have lost. It's come down to 80%. If you keep it at 35 degrees, you will lose 2.5% per year. At 45, 2.5% per year. And if you keep it at 35 degrees, you will lose 1.5%. So you must keep the battery packs cool. I mean, that is very important. So if you're selecting an EV vehicle, you must ask your manufacturer or whosoever supplies, how is he cooling the battery? Otherwise, if he says, "Sir, वहाँ से cool कर रहे हैं," then in Delhi the temperature is 45 degrees. The third area of concern is a fundamental principle of engineering, which is called thermodynamics, is that the faster the reaction you do, the higher is the entropy. So if you were to fast charge your lithium-ion batteries, you will lose life. Ideally, the most manufacturers give these cells which are rated to be charged at 0.3 C rate and discharged at typically 1 C. So these are the constraints which no one is advising in the industry. I mean, I have not seen this. People are touting fast charging, people are touting high capacity discharge. This will affect the cost of ownership. And we have to take caution against that. And that's all I have to say about it. Otherwise, the EV vehicle is very simple, not much of maintenance. एक motor है, एक controller है. So you have very little maintenance, no engine tuning, no carburetor tuning, no fuel problems. But if you take care of your EV vehicle battery, then life will be good. So I think so. That's about all I have to say.
Questions? Yes, question. So when you talk about the lithium-ion battery, so we know like we don't have a course in India for lithium-ion. So mainly the China and Australia and the lithium-ion. So they are producing the lithium-ion battery and we are sourcing from like China.
Right.
I definitely like over the years, in upcoming years, this will increase our commodity cost. And battery right now, 40% of the electricity cost is in the battery.
Right.
So how we can bring down the battery cost in India?
Very simple. Standardization. Today, when you look at manufacturers of EV vehicles, everyone is wanting to do their own thing. They want their own cell, they want their own size. Now, nationally, whatever be our demand, till we standardize the cell level standardization, volumes for our cells will not build up, and there will be no Indian manufacturer come up to build just 500 cells or 1,000 cells. So I think the standardization is the way out. And as an industry, I would recommend the government or the industry to come forward on the standardization issue.
We are ongoing for 18650 cells. All are going for 18650 cells.
18650 cells are being used, but the problem is this, that for the capacities you are talking, you have to parallel too many cells. Now, paralleling cells is not a good thing. So you have to use larger cells.
Now my second question is like, there are two standards, the CHAdeMO and the Q1772 connector.
Yeah.
Both are, I mean, CHAdeMO, I heard, learned about like charging around 100 amperes. Okay, so I mean, let's say Tesla fast charging station 4. So they are charging at around 100 amperes of current. It's too much, like it can melt the iron. So how the cell life or battery life will get affected?
Badly.
But they are giving the guarantee of around 8 years.
For Tesla.
Yeah. Right.
No, but then Tesla structure, you see, when you're giving 100 amperes current from a charge mode, inside the Tesla there is an electronic system that is regulating it. It is not a direct feed. You're not charging at 100 amps.
They are using the coolants in their battery.
That is right. So that's why I said battery temperature control is important. You just cannot plug in 100 amperes. Plus, the other thing in cell technology is that do not leave your EVs charged. The ideal case is that if you have an EV, right, keep it between 70% charge and use it till 30% discharge. The life will be more than 8,000 cycles. But if you leave it at 180% or 100% charge, then your life will come down to maybe 2,000 cycles.
And the last question is about the cell balancing. Like, generally we talk about the 90% of the cell balancing. So, I mean, it's like fast charging, we can do it 95 and 90, then after the cell balancing.
No, that doesn't work. What happens is that as you use, each cell is different, right? So as you use, the divergence takes place. And as you age, the divergence takes place. So you have to have better active cell balancing systems to manage in the Indian conditions.
So that will be done by the BMS or?
By the BMS, but it has to be active. You have to balance at 5 amperes, 10 amperes.
Thanks.
One question.
Sure.
Are we expecting some new technology better and cost effective than lithium ion?
I cannot say that new technology is not coming, right? But in terms of commercialization of the technology, right, I would suggest that it will take at least another 7-8 years for a new technology to get commercialized. If you look at lithium-ion technology, right, 2-3 years back, it was at nearly $1,200 per kilowatt hour. It's now come down to $130 because it has now got commercialized. So by the time the new technology comes and gets commercialized, it will be another 10 years away. It takes time.
Typically, electrical vehicle has very less components in
Yes.
combustion. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what is the cost of the lithium-ion battery?
40%.
In a vehicle, 40%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a major cost.
Yeah.
But if you use your pack well, if the system is used well, as I said, you have a 15-year life. So lithium-ion battery in a vehicle application is allowed to be degraded by 20%. Then the balance 80% goes to storage systems. So it goes down the stream, right? Now, that is one of the problems we are facing in the country. A lot of used batteries are being dumped to us at low cost, which are being used by people of questionable issues in the EV space. So you have to be careful.
So, what is the way to know whether it's used one or two?
One is a capacity test,
Okay.
right? And the other is monitor the temperature rise of the battery while you're doing the capacity test. The biggest tell in a battery is the temperature rise. So if the battery heats up more, then it's not good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate your excellent insight and time, Mr. Agarwal.
It's time to continue our quiz, and we have a few additional questions for you all. Individuals who have not won anything should not be discouraged, as we will provide additional chances to be tonight. Our next question is, what Industry 4.0 means? I repeat, what Industry 4.0 means?
And who would like to answer this question? Sure, I'm coming to you, sir. Yes, please. That's right. It's manufacturing industry.
That's good.
All right, our next question is, which pharmaceutical company has decided to expand its vaccine business in the UK with an investment of £240 million? We have too many hands. That's right, excellent. Thank you. Next question is, which company has regained its position as the third largest Indian IT services company in India? Once again, I'll give him the chance this time. Yes, sir. What is it? That's right. It's Wipro.
Now coming to next questions. We're going. So our next question is, which Indian logistic company has launched the Oxygen on Wheels project? I repeat, which Indian logistic company has launched the Oxygen on Wheels project? Any guess? I can give you a hint if in case you.
We have someone who would like to answer this question. Mahindra.
Absolutely correct, sir.
Congratulations once again to all our winners of the night. We are equally happy for you to have won this quiz of the evening. Yes. Congratulations, sir.
Once again, congratulations.
Congratulations. Moving on, I really would like to thank all of you once again for being such a terrific crowd tonight. And I definitely had a lovely time hosting you all. Hope you all had a great time too.
Thanks.
And may I please invite Gaurav once again to come and speak a few words now. Thank you.
Has been a lovely event, and I thank you all for being part of this event and making this a memorable one, and really appreciate your sparing time coming here and spending time with us. And we are not going to just stop here, because this is in the way of vision, and we will continue, and we will be we will try to make it more happening and more interesting in future. And after this event, my team will be connecting with you all to have a feedback. Please give them your genuine feedback, and also some points how to improve, how you want to see this in future to happen. And with this, I thank to our event partner UiPath team sitting here. Thank you very much for being here and getting participated, and we really appreciate that. And I also thank to my team here of McKinsey and New Ways, Spot Your Deal, and I thank without which this event would not be possible. And also the online viewers here from US and from I think across all the important part of the world, they're joining, and thanks to them because really it's an effort for them waking up. I think it's very early in the morning they are awake and for this event. Thanks to all, and really appreciate, guys. And with this, I'll end here the session. Enjoy. There's fantastic cocktail and dinner awaiting you all. Enjoy that and have a wonderful rest of the evening. Yes. Okay, Mr. Niranjan, he's a global SAP delivery head, wants to share something. Please, over to you.
Hello, Gaurav and all. Thank you very much for being on this meet. In fact, I should appreciate the meet.com for organizing this event. It's been wonderful, and I mean, I was listening to Mr. Agarwal and many other speakers. You have been able to get wonderful going over here, and I appreciate and I thank you very much for this particular meeting and sharing all your experiences. Thank you very much. All the very best.
Missing you here, but it's okay. Okay. All right. Please continue with the dinner and cocktails. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all.